We're going to talk first about this MC that we're all going to use from now on. I want you to use it everywhere. I want you to use it when you're talking with family. I want you to use it when you're talking with friends, with strangers. I want you to use it in face-to-face conversations. I want you to use it online, just like we've talked about using other MCs in the past. What are some of the MCs that we've talked about in the past? Can anybody remember name one? How about Hush Crime? Does anybody else know? We've had Hush Crime. What else have we had as an MC to use? And we remember the power of using Hush Crime. Seaver, hate hoax, exactly. That's another great one. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Ryan, yes, hate hoax. Very powerful tool. Today we're going to be talking about the word heresy. We're going to be using this as a MC, a meme curative, moving forward. So the way it works is this. When you are brought before one of these anti-white tribunals or socially lynched, as we were talking about earlier, at work, at school, in a community organization that you belong in, when you are called down to the office, when your teacher takes you out into the hall, when your professor asks you to see him or her after class, when a government arrests you, as we just had Phil Arps, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't know exact. Phil was regularly seen in this community, had a lot of great things to say. Spartan Warrior Queen, if she's still with us, can speak to this. A great friend of Spartan Warrior Queens and Poseidon's, was always on their channel, very often over here. DeMarcus, what's going on? Good to see you. People are still coming in. Odin is here. Great to see you. Phil was a great guy. Spartan Warrior Queens Rise is a great guy. He is a great guy. And we're going to mention what happened to him. He was found guilty of something. Now, what that something is, what I'm saying right now, what that specific something is irrelevant. Whether that something is something that you would do or I would do is also irrelevant. Whether it's something that you would find repugnant or I would find repugnant, you know, maybe using curse words in front of children or something to say that white people shouldn't be harmed, and you wouldn't do that or I wouldn't do that, is not relevant to what we're talking about here. What the actual name of the charge is in the country he was charged in. Phil is a man in the white positive sphere, showed up very often in the chats, always had good things to say, and the country he lived in filed charges against him for doing X, Y, or Z, but we're going to talk about that. And they wanted something like, Spartan, if you could correct me, I don't know, something like 14 years in prison. This is what the prosecutors actually wanted. He didn't murder someone. You know, in America, you can rape a white woman and get 2.5 years in jail and spend 6 months in jail before you're paroled. In other European countries, you can do the same. In other Western countries, you can do the same. In South Africa, you can rape and ritualistically torture and then murder white little girls, and you're charged with a pickpocketing gone wrong. Phil shared a video. I wouldn't have shared the video. Maybe you wouldn't have shared the video, but all he did was share a video. Now, the government, of course, is going to call it things like racism or provoking hate or whatever sort of anti-white moniker, that label they want to put to the thing. But you and I, we're not going to say, and by the way, Phil, with a wife, and I think we have this information right, 2 little girls. Fortunately, he didn't get 14 years in jail, but he got 2 years in jail for sharing a video. But no, not for sharing a video. He got 2 years in jail for heresy because he wasn't anti-white enough. That is how we are going to frame it all the time from now on. So, when you're called down to that office because you spoke up for white well-being, you're being called down for heresy because you weren't anti-white enough. When your parents say, why were you called down to the office? I was called down for heresy because I'm not anti-white enough. When your spouse says, I got the text message that your boss yelled at you. Why did your boss yell at you? Boss yelled at me for heresy because I'm not anti-white enough. When you're telling your group of friends that you were suspended from your policing job for 6 weeks, and they say, why were you suspended? You were suspended for heresy because you're not anti-white enough. We frame things the way that they benefit us and our reality, just like the anti-whites do for them. They will frame you as the bad guy. They will frame you as the ne'er-do-well. They will frame you as the evildoer. And then we go off and repeat what they say. We go off and repeat. Why was Phil sentenced to prison? Oh, well, Phil went to jail for 2 years because he broke the law of sharing insensitive material to non-whites, or whatever sick moniker the anti-whites want to put on it. Hell no. You're not going to tell people that's why Phil went to jail. Phil went to jail for heresy because he's not anti-white enough. That's the totality of the phrase. He was a heretic. He wasn't anti-white enough. That's how you're going to share it with your family and friends. And what does that do? How does that frame the argument? It immediately sets the premise of reality that the anti-whites are in charge of our civilization, not the white man. This isn't the anti-white narrative, where the long-suffering, wrongly put upon, powerless non-whites are waging their valiant struggle against an awful white race that's just holding them down because they hold all the power. BS. They hold all the power. And when you and I get punished, when you and I get victimized, jailed, fired, demoted, we don't get the promotion. When we are victimized, it's because we are not anti-white enough. It's because we are being punished for heresy. That is why we are being victimized. Not because you said something, not because Sally said something that a Pakistani found insensitive. Not because John did X, Y, or Z, and the Nigerian family didn't like X, Y, or Z. They found it insensitive. Not because some anti-white code was broken at some place of business, but for heresy. It demonstrates in the premise immediately that the anti-whites are in charge, and it demonstrates that they, the anti-whites, don't permit deviation. Not that you are trying to do something wrong, that they have a rigid line that you are not allowed, even as an adult, in a country built by your people, a country created by your biospirit, that you are not allowed to cross that line. Words that from a language that you and our people created, that you are not allowed to say. Our creations, our inventions, our words, our definitions, our mouths are taped shut. Our careers are cut short. Our lives made miserable because we are being victimized for heresy, not because of this or that anti-white rule that we broke. Does that make sense? From now on, this is how we frame it. We are heretics to the anti-white establishment. We break their rules. We are victimized for heresy because we are not anti-white enough. And you have to say that every time at the end. It's because you're not anti-white enough. So your audience knows exactly why you're being victimized. You are the victim. The regime is not protecting someone from you. You are the victim. When you are called down to that anti-white tribunal and you sit before those leering, ugly faces who sneer down at you, it's not because you have done something wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It's not because you are a bad person. No, it is because you are a champion. You've been called before the arena. And like a gladiator, these anti-white bastards sitting in their thrones around you are demanding that you fight the monsters of their creations. You are the hero. You are being victimized by them. They are not protecting a soul. So never again do we talk about a infraction of some anti-white rule to protect some non-white member of some non-white group. Never again. They are not the victims. The regime are not the shield bearers of the poor and downtrodden. No, they stand over you with their boot on your throat and the sword tip at your nose. You are the victim. You're being punished for heresy because you are not anti-white enough. Say it 1,000 times a day until you get it right. Say it in every conversation you get in. When that anti-white online says to you that you're being censored off of that because you are a racist or you are this, some anti-white slur that they want to use, you correct them. You're not doing something wrong. You are being censored off because of heresy, because you're not anti-white enough. And then I want you to come back to me and I want you to share your testimony of how successful this is. Who among you is going to be the first to go out into the public and use this meme curative and succeed because of it? Who among you is going to be the one with the greatest victory story? Who among you is going to be the gladiator who walked into that arena with your flail, with your shield, and won the day? Who among you is going to be the first? Because I will tell you now, our numbers are growing, and the day will come when you use this lexicon and these dialectics and you win. And instead of having a crowd that jeers and hisses over your victory, roses will be thrown at your feet. And I will be among them, my friends, throwing the most at your feet. So from now on, we use the MC Heresy